Sandy Babb and welcome to my studio. I've had a lot of requests to share this particular technique of painting a background paper that turns your art into sticker art. So I thought I would share that tutorial with you today. And the first thing we're going to do is gather up our supplies. So I usually always have baby wipes on hand, a blotting cloth. I've got a little container in case I need it for my ink. I'm going to need some water. I'm going to need some matte gel medium. I am using Liquitex matte gel medium. It can be any, whatever your favorite brand is. A variety of paintbrushes. We are going to be using charcoal, whatever kind of charcoal pencil you have. Masking tape. We're going to be using paints. These four paints here are actually chalk paints. These are Waverly chalk paints. They are sold, they're made by Plaid. They are sold at Walmart. And the colors I have here are Agave, Silver Lining, Celery, and Crystal. I have just a standard black and white acrylic inexpensive craft paint. I have a golden Quinacridone Nickel Azo Gold. I have some black India ink. Just a mister bottle with some water. I'm going to be using a makeup wedge. A variety of stamps. I have a couple of small Mandala stamps. These came in a set of 5. They were ordered online from a company called Wish, and there's no markings, numbers, anything like that. I found a set of these. I'm using a couple of those. This is from a Tim Holtz stamp pack. It's a Paris stamp, just a clear, clean stamp. And this is a Stampin' Up! French script stamp, and I got it at Hobby Lobby. All of the supplies are going to be listed in the description below, so, you know, don't sweat that. It'll all be listed for you. So I've got all those goodies there. I also have some clear gesso, and this is Liquitex brand also. You're going to need some small bits of just little images or pieces of ephemera, some small scraps of paper, just a variety of different little things to collage with, and you're going to need your background. For the background, we are going to be using a sheet of printable adhesive label. The two brands that I'm familiar with are the 3M and the Avery. For this particular project, I'm going to use the 3M. You can't see this on camera, but the 3M sheet is really smooth, and it seems to be a thicker paper. It seems like the paint moves around on it better. The Avery, it has a texture feel to it. And it's a little thinner, and I just prefer the 3M, but either one works, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to use the 3M. And the last thing you're going to need is a stencil. This was a stencil that was a part of a pack from Walmart, and so I don't know what brand. I'm thinking it might have been a Plaid, but I'm not sure. A polka dot stencil. If you don't have a polka dot stencil, some good options are to use the end of a pencil eraser. It makes great dots. A simple house, beauty aid, a Q-tip can make dots. Or if you have a standard hole punch, cut yourself some cardstock and just punch away and make yourself a little pattern, and there you have your stencil. So, whatever way you choose to do that. And I made myself a little love note so I would remember the order. This has been a while since I painted this sheet, and I'll get it as close to this as I can. I can't promise the outcome is going to be exact and perfect, but we'll see. And the other tool that you might want to do if you don't have time for air drying is going to be your heat tool. And that gets us gathered up for all of our process. And so in this process, we're going to paint, we're going to paper, ink, charcoal, smudge, stencil, and pattern. If you want to take it a step more, you could draw, you could sand, scratch, tear back, 3D, write. The sky's the limit, but I'll just show you with this one what I did. I'm going to put this on my easel over here so I can kind of quick peek at it and remember what I did. So we're going to start with the 3M label. This is the peeling back side, and we're just going to lay it down on our surface. And we're going to use some clear gesso and gesso the page. And I just do this because the paint tends to want to just suck into this paper and not move, so it's better if you've got a primer. If you want to use a white background on it, you can do that too. It's totally up to you what you use, how you use it. I don't want that little black dot in there. Just, you know, however you want to, but I like my paint to be able to move around on this, and it seems to move better if your page is primed. So I'm just giving it a light coat. It doesn't need to be real thick or anything. It didn't directional, it doesn't matter. Just a light coat. I'm going to hit it with my heat tool real quick just to give me a little bit of a dry. I don't want to mist this down and then wipe it away. So just a little bit of a dry. I don't use the heat tool very much on this. And one of the reasons is because of the sticky back. You don't want to heat it too much. Don't get it too hot or warm. Just, you know, enough to kind of move things around. I've already got my paint palette poured out here and ready to go. Just put it here on that blotting cloth so I can get to it. A baby wipe at the ready. You're going to take your mister bottle and just mist your paper just slightly. It's okay if the paint moves around with the gesso or whatever. And this you're just going to use a little slip slappy motion. I'm just slippy slappied my, totally slip slappied my water over. I had it too full. Sop some of that up. Okay, there we go. And I'm just going to leave a little bit of water in my brush too. And you're just going to pick up paint. I've got my, this is actually a blue, it almost looks a gray, and there's the gray, a deeper blue, a green, a black, and a white. And I'm just going to kind of smush some paint on. There's really no rhyme or no reason to this. You're just going to start putting some paint on, just in random sections. You want to just do some random. And like I said, I don't really clean my brush because I like the colors to kind of mix, and I'll mix some more of these in a minute. I'm just kind of doing whatever feels right to me to smush around. And I'm going to cover this entire sheet with just little portions of paint. This is some of that pale blue and gray. Do a little white down here to mix in. I'm going to get a little bit more water in my brush. A little white over here. And you're just going to work this until you're happy with what your background looks like. You work this until you're happy with whatever it looks like. However it's smeared, however it's smudged. If you want a little bit more water, if you want it a little more cloudy and creamy, if you want, you know, if you want it blended more. If you don't like some of the harsh lines, you can work it a little bit with your baby wipe and take some of that out. I usually just work it with the water in my brush. I'm not really good at thinking it through to blend and things like that. And as long as I've got water in my brush and a little bit of water on this background, it usually comes out. And I just want a cloudy, like a cloudy little background. And I am going to dip in every once in a while and get a tiny bit of black and just cloud that in there. Okay, and I'm kind of happy with just how cloudy, and this one is probably a little bit more bold in places, but I will be going back. So, you know, you just want to start out with just a light cloudy background, and you can either allow that to air dry, or I'm going to hit it lightly, just a little bit lightly with the heat gun. Now I'm going to go into my collage portion, and we're going to just pick some papers. First I'm going to pick just a few random papers here out of my bowl, and this is where you might put a little bit of thought in it. In this piece, I knew that I wanted this piece cut into strips, so I was mindful of how I placed some of my elements so that I knew that when I cut it, it was gonna, you know, look the way I wanted it to. You don't have to. It can be very random, because you can punch this out, you can cut it apart, you know, do whatever you want to with it, but I was mindful with this one. This one I'm not going to be. I think I'm just going to kind of be random with it on how I want to do that. So I just want to take some of my collage medium and put it on my paper. And even though this is still a little damp, I'm just going to be kind of a little random about it. You don't need a lot of these pieces of paper. I just pulled some that I thought I liked. I think that might be enough paper for me, so I'm going to use my masking tape, and I'm going to add some tape on the end of it. I'm just going to add a few pieces of masking tape just for texture. Then I'm going to look at, go back into some of my paint. Kind of rinse this brush a little bit. And yes, I'm just using the same brush. These are just a cheap set of brushes. These are Royal Talon. They're just a general acrylic paintbrush that I got at Walmart. And I'm going to take just a little bit of the paint here and there. And I want to hit some of these papers and blend them back. And I just go and pick up, just keep picking up until I'm happy with it. You know, and I'll let that rest for it to dry. I'm going to hit it with, just since I'm doing this live, I'm going to hit it with a little bit with my heat gun before we move on to doing some. Okay. Totally feels dry enough. I want to go back in and use my small elements now and glue those in. Brush blot it off and kind of decide where I want things placed. Then I'll go back into that paint again. I kind of get a little bit of this out of my brush, and I'm going to go back into that paint again. And it doesn't matter that my gel medium is wet. That'll help the blendability. And I'm going to just kind of go over some of it to, again, push it back. And as you go through here, you can go back in and take some really bold swipes. You want to just do some bold swipes. You can go in with your color, and oops, I didn't have much color in it, did it? That wasn't very bold, was it? I'm just doing a few bold swipes here and there, and then just kind of feathering that out with the end of my brush. I want a little bit of water when I do this with the black. Do this with the black, and I'm going to blend that a little bit with the baby wipe just to kind of make it more like a streak. And then you're going to take some of the Quinacridone Nickel Azo Gold, the golden, get some of this black out of my brush. Get rid of that. And this is what we're going to use for antiquing. I'm just going to put a little bit out on my mat here. And I'm just going to lightly get a little bit on here because this is really a bold color. And I'm just going to lightly hold my brush and drag it. Just enough to make some little drag swoop marks. And I didn't do it, you know, like everywhere, just random across the page. Then we are going to, this is going to need to completely either air dry or I'm going to once again do the heat both. So I'm going to use a combination of my India ink. I'm going to put a little ink in my just a little bit in my container here, enough to use that. And I'm also going to have my black paint handy because I'm going to use both of those. And I'm going to do, you can either do your stencil or your stamp first, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to do my stamp, and I'm going to start with my text stamp. And I'm going to start with a washed out brush. I'm going to blot this out really well. I don't want any of that gold or anything in there. And I'm going to actually use paint because it's what I've got out here, and my black ink pad is missing. I don't know what I did with it. Now when you use paint on your stamps, you need to wash them right away. I'm just going to warn you. I'm doing a little corner, and I'm going to stamp just a few random places on here. Okay, and that's all I'm going to be doing with the black paint. I want to use the India ink, and you could use your paint, but we're going to be doing some other little marks with this, so I don't know, I just like the way the ink comes out. And I'm just going to place my stencil here and there and just do a few of the polka dots. I'm not doing a random, one reason why I like the ink better on this than I like it with the paint, the ink is thinner and I feel like it gets a little, it kind of has, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it has this sort of real charcoaly, chalky kind of quality to it when you use the ink, and so I just like that. I want to use, and I'm going to just use a pencil on this part. I'm going to use the India ink, and I'm just going to take my pencil, and I'm putting the actual lead in here because you can sharpen that away so it doesn't matter. But I'm going to go and just, with my pencil and the India ink, I am making myself some more dots. I'm just doing some mark making. And these you'll have to be careful if you touch them, they do tend to smear. I'm going to draw these a little bit bigger. You can be really random about them. I think I want some on this edge over here. And I could do this with a paintbrush, but honestly, I feel I have more control with the pencil lead, and I can always, like I said, sharpen it away. If I don't like it, I can sharpen it away, and it's gone, you know. I just kind of eyeball my paper and see where I feel like something is blank there, you know, like I'm thinking, well, that looks blank, or that looks blank, or that looks blank. But remember, we have one more set of stamps. So before I do any more of that, I just rinse my pencil lid off and wipe it off with the baby wipe. Before we do any more of that, I'm going to go in. I'm just going to get a different paintbrush for right now because that one is so gross. With the second Mandala stamp, and I'm going to paint it white. And like I said, you can do some ink, but I have misplaced some ink pads somewhere. I don't know what I did with them. So I'm just going to pick a couple of random spots, and I'm going to bring some white. See how that kind of lifts? You need that contrast. You need that dark, light, and medium tones in your work to give you that really good contrast. I kind of do feel like I need a little bit more paint here and there. I'll try to do it with this small brush, but I think this brush is going to be too small to really give me the look I want, but we'll go for it. I feel like I need some stronger whites in a couple of areas, some stronger highlights, and I think that's pretty much what I'm liking here. And this is where, when it's dry, I'm doing it, mine's still a little wet, but you can do it, however you want to. I'm going to take some charcoal, and I'm just going around just kind of drawing around my circle here, and I'm just smudging. Just going to kind of smudge your circle. Just kind of going out of the lines and smudging. You can use your other charcoal stick. It doesn't matter which one you use. I'll kind of show you the difference. This is actually more chalky. This one, I'm going to take my brush with just some water in it, and you can wet it and bleed your charcoal out like that. Like you can either smudge or wet. And these do react differently. You can tell that the pencil one stays more pencilish, and then the charcoal stick, the sketching one, bleeds out a little bit. So you can kind of, you know, randomly do some little marking, and you can do some little drawing. I'm going to use this one because I kind of like that it, you know, spreads it out a little bit. And I'm just going to use some water, and you can see how I'm getting those really dark streaky patches. And that's how I achieve those in the other. Some of these dark streaks were done between the charcoal and the India ink. And so I'm just going to turn my paper a little bit, and this is my favorite charcoal, so I use it a lot. And I'm just going to do some lines on here and go in just with some water. And I'm just going to blend those streaks out just to make some little, you know, random, just some little randomness here and there. And I'm not doing a lot, just a few. I don't want it to get too dark and too heavy. You have to be careful with that. And you can smear it up and down into puddles, whatever. And then I'm going to take my pencil again and go into my India ink, and this is where you can just make some little lines. You can just make little sketchy lines. Let's get some ink on there. You can just make some sketchy little skippy lines that just kind of go across your paper. I'm going to make a few of those sketchy skippy lines. If you need to, you can touch a little bit of the ink to water to give you a little bit more, it'll get a little more fluid with you, and you just barely touch your pencil down. You can do this with a dip pen, but honestly, I kind of grabbed what was closest to me today. And I'm going to do some little line work. Just get a little water on my pencil and put it in my ink. And I'm going to do a little bit of just little streaks. Not much. And some of my pencils coming through with this, and I like that. You can even use just your pencil if you want to. You can use just the pencil. Really, that's kind of all I did. This one's a little darker. I had more, you can tell that I had more white space on this one than I do this one. But I can always go back and fix that. Let's say, you know, this area here looks a little heavy and a little dark. So you simply go back into one of your paints, which I'll go into that brighter blue, and I'll just wash that out a little bit and see how it instantly brought my color back up. So you can do that on your page wherever you feel you need it, and just continue working it until you have it in the vein that you want it in, and how you perceive your page, whatever looks great to you. I'm just going to bring a little bit of that back up, and I'm also going to bring a little bit of the white back up. I'm going to bring just a tiny tad of the white back up. That was too dark. Get some more water. Not that much. We'll make that gray. And I'm just swishing this, and see, I even hit some of my India ink and the dots smeared. That's okay with me. I'm okay with that. So like I said, this one has a little bit more open space with the color. This one I went a little bit heavier with my inks and darks, and you can just work back and forth until you've got everything perfected the way that you want. And the fun thing about this technique is, when you go to the office supply store or your dollar store, wherever you're buying stickers, look at all the shapes they have. There are ones that are just round, like labels, or square, or name tags, or address labels. The thought of being able to do this is endless. Now, I'm showing you how to do it directly onto the sticky back. If you don't want to do it directly onto the sticky back, do this directly onto a piece of mixed media paper, watercolor paper, and then scan it into your computer. And you can adjust your colors, tones, you can add layers to it, and then print it out as your paper. I don't have a printer, a laser copy printer, so what I usually do is do backgrounds. I scan them all in, get them like I want them, take them down to my local copy shop and have them copied, because I just have an inkjet printer and it wouldn't be, you know, stable. I don't seal this. If you want to, you can put a clear coat of gesso on this. I usually don't. Your charcoal could continue to smear if you don't seal that, so I would let that completely dry, all this ink and stuff. I'm not going to touch it because all that India ink will smear. So here's the one that's already done, and here is what my intent was. I hear some of you screaming out there, don't do it. Yeah, this is what I was going to do. I wanted to cut it into strips. See, I want that one to be about an inch strip. Cut it, and then when I'm ready to use this, you just peel this off and it sticks to your artwork. You can cut it, you can freeform cut it, you can punch it out with a punch. You can stick the whole thing down. If you just want to do a journal page and you're like, I don't want to paint in the book, but I'm going to stick this whole thing down, you can do that too. And that is how you turn your art into a sticker. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those for me and I'll get back to you with those. And thank you for joining me.